Well, this book is based on the premise that we live in an interconnected world, made up of peoples with lots of different cultures and traditions, and it seeks to understand how these people interact with each other across cultural lines, especially when it comes to religion. It does this by looking at the way many peoples have responded to and interacted with Christian missionaries who have gone to virtually every corner of the globe, but not from the missionary perspectives, but rather from the indigenous ones. Well, as a scholarly treatise, it is directed to two groups of academics. First, seminarians and students of religious studies, and second, students and teachers of world history, a field within the historical profession. For the latter, I think religion as a global force in the modern era has been somewhat understudied, and I hope that this book might help to remedy that situation. The book might appeal to a broader audience of readers as well. I think the book can be read at three levels. First, as a global survey of these interactions in all the different regions of the world, which would make it suitable for use in courses. I should add that I don't attempt to be encyclopedic about this and cover all cases. That would be too exhausting for the reader, so I limit myself to what I believe to be representative examples from each region. And second, I develop a vocabulary of these cross-cultural interactions, which cut across different regions and attempt to describe broader patterns of how such interactions work. In the introductory chapter, I arrange these on a spectrum, ranging from resistance and rejection at one extreme to acceptance and commitment at the other. And in between, there are several different kinds of combinations, which you can see here. I don't have time to go into detail on all these, but I would like to single out one of them, which I see as especially revealing and has implications for the third level of reading this book that I'll describe in a minute. That term is concentration of spirituality. By that I mean the impulse to simplify and purify one's religion by discarding aspects of one's previous religion that now appear to be superficial or extraneous or even idolatrous. We can all think of such cases, for example, the story of Moses and the golden calf. Or another might be Martin Luther's rejection of indulgences, claiming rather that we know God, quote, by faith alone. Another type of this concentration would be ascetic practices, deliberately denying oneself certain sensual pleasures as a means of self-discipline, such as giving up something for Lent or fasting in Ramadan. Now, in the course of the book, I play off this notion of concentrated spirituality against its conceptual opposite, namely diffuse spirituality. Not only the belief in multiple spirits, but also the interpenetration of religion with the practical affairs of the world. I suspect some of us may still hold the view that concentrated spirituality is superior, less superstitious than diffuse spirituality, but I would like to advance the notion that both are equally important to a healthy religious life and to a healthy society. And this brings me to the third, more speculative level, which I develop in the conclusion, namely that what this contrast has to tell us about religion in general. Not just the belief system or theology, but the multiple aspects and dimensions of what it means for people to be religious. I call this the Phenomenology of Religion, and I find it convenient to think of it as consisting in four dimensions: the theoretical, the practical, the experiential, and the political. So let me try to explain this a little bit. At the theoretical level, plainly, we're talking about the contrast between a belief in one God or many gods and spirits, for example. The practical level refers to the actions people take in the name of religion. Here, concentration could refer to ritual, namely setting aside a place and a time for a repeated set of activities properly performed. Diffuse spirituality, on the other hand, would mean being out in the world, say by performing charitable works or education or healing. The third, the experiential dimensions, cover those aspects that grip the whole person, especially the emotions. This concentration makes us think of religious revivals or the Pentecostals speaking in tongues, whereas diffuse spirituality refers to religion as associated with other forms of emotional attachment, like patriotism, for example, So I think it's no coincidence that we often refer to God and country in the same breath. And finally, religion as a set of institutions has a political aspect. The contrast here refers to the type of authority that prevails. Who gets to pronounce on religion and on what grounds? So authority can be concentrated in the hands of religious specialists, such as a clergy, usually male, or diffused among a congregation. Now, quite often, concentration in one of these dimensions is offset by diffusion in another. Again, think of Roman Catholicism, which allows for multiple saints to intercede between the believer and God, but has a highly concentrated structure of clerical authority. In the Protestant Reformation, just the opposite occurred. The concentration of belief, but a diffusion of authority in the form of a multitude of denominations and sects. Well, one thing I've learned from writing this book is that most societies do not make such a strict division between the religious and the secular as does the West. So perhaps the current trend of people leaving organized religion in the name of a vaguely defined spirituality can be seen as a pendulum swing in the direction of diffuse spirituality in our own day. And this is undoubtedly influenced by the penetration of non-Western religious traditions into our own culture, a sign of our global interconnectedness.